Now, in a new controversy over an energy project contract in Sri Lanka awarded to Gautam Adani's group, the Lankan official who had claimed that President Rajapaksa acted under pressure from Prime Minister Narendra Modi has resigned. MMC Ferdinando, the chairman of Sri Lanka's Ceylon Electricity Board or CEB, yesterday retracted his claim that President Rajapaksa had told him that Prime Minister Modi had pressurized him to give him the project, to give the project directly to the Adani Group. He had made this claim first on Friday at an open hearing of the Committee on Public Enterprises, that is a parliamentary panel. By Sunday evening, President Rajapaksa had tweeted regarding the statement made by the CEB chairman at a COP committee hearing regarding the awarding of a wind power project in Mannar. I categorically deny authorization to award this project to any person or entity. I trust responsible communication in this regard will follow. So President Rajapaksa then denied that statement, that allegation, that accusation, and NDTV has approached the Adani Group for its response on this matter, but that is still awaited.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා මාව සාකච්ඡාවකින් පස්සේ ගෙන්නලා මම හිතන් ගිය නොවැම්බර් 24 වෙනිදා වගේ කිව්වා මේ අදානි සමාගමට දෙන්න මේක ඉන්දියා අගමැති මෝඩි කියනවා මට බල කරනවා මේක දෙන්නේ කියලා කියලා. පස්සේ මම ඒ වෙලාවේ කිව්වා මේකේ මේ මටවත් විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලයට අයිති ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෑ. මේක ආයෝජන මණ්ඩලයට අයිති ප්‍රශ්නයක් කියලා. නෑ ඔයා මේක මම ඒ හින්දා මම ලියුවල් ලියලා දැම්මා මට මෙන්න මෙහෙම ජනාධිපතිතුමා නියෝගයක් දෙනවා කියලා මම මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශ ලේකම් කිව්වා මේක ඔහෙන් කරගන්නේ මේ විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලයට අදාළ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙවෙයි කියලා.
All right, let's go across to NDTV's Shrija, who's been following this story and bringing us all of these updates. First and foremost, Shrija, the story is developing fast and furiously. You have an accusation and then followed by a denial, then a resignation. In the midst of all of this, what has the Adani Group said in response, and what about the government of India? Has there been any response from them on this issue?
Well, as far as the government is concerned, or also from an official from Adani Group, we have reached out to Adani Group. However, we have not received a response just yet. In terms of the government, there's not been a response yet as far as this particular, allegation that was made by the CEB chairman is concerned, Mr. Ferdinando. In terms of this entire, explosive story, we're talking about where Mr. Ferdinando, who's the CEO of the Ceylon Electricity Board, he had made a revelation which went on to talk about where especially Gotabaya Rajapaksa and also even Mahinda Rajapaksa, the then Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, both were pressurized in terms of approving this particular deal which was insisted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So these were the allegations that were made by Mr. Ferdinando. This is right before the parliamentary panel as far as the committee is concerned. So just hours after that, we understand this particular allegation made by him did of course go viral, after which he retracted his statement saying that he was under pressure and he was very emotional, and that's exactly the reason why he made such a statement. But if you really go by the document that's accessed by NDTV, you can look at that particular document. This is dated to November 2021. In this particular document, we see that Mr. Ferdinando, he's also addressing to the Treasury of the Finance. He goes on to talk about how basically he was directed not just by Mahinda Rajapaksa but also by Gotabaya Rajapaksa to consider Adani Group's deal of wind and solar power project should actually be handed over to Adani. So this is something which has now run into controversy. However, we haven't heard back from Adani Group just yet.
All right, many unanswered questions, Shrija. Let's try and get some of them answered because we have joining us on the line Mr. Jeevan Thandaman. He's an MP in Sri Lanka right now. And Shrija, if you can hear Mr. Thandaman, you can join me in putting across some questions because I'm sure you have many because you've been following this story closely. But Mr. Thandaman, thank you so much for joining us. Now, the story right now is that days after saying Prime Minister Modi pushed the Adani deal, the Ceylon Electricity Board head quits. his resignation is announced by the Power and Energy Minister on Twitter, and he writes that his resignation has been accepted and that he even announces a replacement. Mr. Thondaman, the fact that the government has openly, was there any attempt even made to ask him to stay on? Because there are questions, of course, being raised as was he pressurized to resign after his admission?
Good evening. First of all, thank you for having me. Now, I mean, as you rightly explained, over the weekend we got into this controversial statement given by the CEB chairman, where he had mentioned that the Prime Minister of India had insisted that the Adani Group be given the wind power contract particularly. But, I would also like to say, we are an independent faction in the parliament. We are not in the ruling party, nor are we in the opposition. So looking at it from a third perspective, what we had already suggested to the Prime Minister's office is that an independent inquiry must be launched into this particular allocation. But however, I think it also must be understood that, right now in Sri Lanka, with the political and economic crisis going on, there's been a lot of misinformation that has been circulated not only on social media, but, by media in general, in certain aspects. So when the CEB chairman is, giving a statement of this nature, and he later withdraws the statement, certainly questions are going to be raised. But at the same time, I think we need to understand the mindset and the mentality in which the CEB chairman was in. Now, whether he was pressurized to resign or not, I can't speculate on that. But the reality of the situation is, there are questions that are unanswered. And, an inquiry is only way through which we'll be able to get any more answers.
Well, Mr. Thondaman, I have a question for you. It's very interesting to note how Mr. Ferdinando, he made this revelation in terms of talking about how Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was pressurized by, the Modi government, by Modi, so that they can hand over the project to Adani. Now, the question here is, it comes just a day after where, the electricity board, in terms of the amendments, the changes were made, where there is no competitive bidding. What is your reaction to that? Was this a way to, facilitate Adani's the power project?
So, no, I think, first of all, we must understand the Sri Lankan political history and the nature of governance that has been existing in Sri Lanka all these years. Especially with, the electricity board and certain other state-run enterprises as well. There's always been a lot of issues in terms of administration, especially with union interference and whatnot. And right now we are in a situation where we are, in an economic crisis, as all of you are aware. So we do have to take certain harsh decisions which would enable, some transparent administration to an extent. Now, even if there was competitive bidding, the extent to which it would help out is, arguable, practically speaking. And I just need to make it clear that, see, at the end of the day, the Adani Group, to us, is just another entity. Anybody can come on board with whichever project that is up for grabs in Sri Lanka. So, if we are going to go into details based on the statement given by the CEB chairman, we would have to wait for further inquiry. Which is now, as you're aware, the Court Committee, which is, the watchdog in Parliament. They have revealed some startling facts. But I'm sure you're aware, earlier it was announced that about 644 million rupees was misappropriated. But then from further investigations, it was revealed that was a false allegation. So similarly, with the statement given by the CEB chairman, we do need to go into it and see under what aspect he has mentioned it. There's a document that has been submitted. This document needs to be made public, and also it has to be given to the parliamentarians for further scrutiny. So we need to see if there's anything out of the ordinary in this particular project. But however, in my personal opinion, being an independent MP, so in my personal opinion, being an independent MP, from what we have noticed, a statement was given by the CEB chairman. However, he has retracted the statement, and we would require more answers in the coming future. So I think, it would not be the right thing to do to speculate as of now.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Tondaman, for your time. I understand you're in a tough situation as an independent MP, given the situation that Sri Lanka is, the economic crisis that Sri Lanka is facing. But even as an independent MP in the government, how is the opposition taking up? You are telling us on TV that we must give this more time in order for the truth to come out. But surely you believe, despite this economic crisis in the country, or perhaps one should say especially given that Sri Lanka is in this state of affairs, it is especially important that one get to the bottom of this matter.
See, the truth of the matter is, even in the opposition in Sri Lanka, it's not just one particular party that is in the opposition. There is a multitude of parties, different political parties with different political principles and ideologies. Likewise with the ruling party as well. Even the independent 40 MPs, there are various political ideologies which clash with one another. So there are certain groups which would like to make a mountain out of a molehill, which would like to gain political mileage through these particular instances. But however, if tomorrow, if due procedure had been followed, and there has been no sort of mishandling, no any abuse of power as such or any sort of influence, and I don't see the issue, because with this particular Electricity Amendment Act, it's a very controversial bill. So, as I mentioned earlier, certain harsh decisions need to be made to get the country back on track.
Right, Mr. Tondaman, thanks for joining us, independent MP there from Sri Lanka, joining us on this controversy. Of course, we will wait for more details to emerge, but thank you for your time right now.